What screams I peaked in high school? Back when Facebook expanded beyond college students and obliterated MySpace, there was an influx of people that had never used social media before. So for my age group at the time, 40 and over, there was a reconnection of old friends that you'd either lost contact with altogether or haven't seen since the last reunion. It was a great time for a couple years, because people would say let's all meet at such and such bar and we'd all reconnect. Someone threw an all 80s get together which I attended. I graduated H.S. in 1986. Some dude approached me and introduced himself. Class of 81, I was in J.R.I. He says. You probably remember me. Or at least heard of me. Because I won the talent show in 1981. With my guitar. There was this really smart girl in my graduating class who went on to work at a prestigious university in an extremely competitive field. In our freshman year math class, the teacher posed a tricky question that no one could solve, kind of like in Good Will Hunting. I solved it. She didn't. I still think about it nearly 10 years later. When I was 21, working nights at a pizza and beer bar, trying to get out of junior college and get out of town, I had a high school acquaintance say to me, well, I guess we're past our peaks now. I said if I believed that was true I'd kill myself. Well, in fairness, I've never been thinner or faster than an HS. But man have I been happier than those days. Bragging about your hookups in HS when you're 37. Running into someone who bullied you in high school years later and they still act like they did in high school. On Facebook with local high school class of XX prominently in their bio. Friends online with entire graduating class. Still shows up randomly for that Friday Night Lights action alumni strut. Being 40 plus years old and trying to win internet arguments with people by claiming you took AP classes in HS. I had a chemistry teacher who showed every single class a video of her as a homecoming queen. She was around 50 years old at the time and still proud of that HT. She was a STTY teacher though. So it's not like she had her job to be proud of, I guess. Going back home. Going to the old watering hole and seeing the same people there from 5-10 years ago but looking way more bloated and depressed. Obsessing over the 10-year reunion. I was guilty of this one. Got a fancy haircut. Lost 15 pounds doing a liquid diet. Got circumcised. I have a friend who wears a cheerleader uniform every single year for Halloween. She will then post a picture on Facebook every single year and say look, it still fits. Does yours? You are 50 years old. It is time to move on. Edit. Okay. Too many people to respond to. So quick summary. Yes. It does really still fit. Yes. I agree it is impressive. No. I won't post pics. I like this person. No. She is not a bitch. She is actually a really nice person. Possibly the nicest I know. She is one of those people who is super nostalgic and in a sense did peak in HS. She will post photos and videos from cheer camp, halftime performances, etc. She is also very much into her kids' high school experience. Her daughter is a cheerleader. Her son was a football player. Okay. This is Reddit. So I think this might hit closer to home than a lot of people would like to admit. But when you're still bringing up the fact you were in A, P, and honors classes in high school, everyone likes to bring up the obvious cliche of the former jock who can't let go of the past as a star player on his HS football team. But folks that consistently bring up their AP and honors classes, which trust me, no one fucking cares about, is the academic equivalent. Shouting stuff about being a golden god. No. That's for people who haven't even begun to peak yet. In Australia, a lot of schools have personalized jackets, hoodies, or rugby jumpers in year 12. A clear sign that someone peaked in high school is when they still wear the jumper in social situations years later. Bragging about your glorious 4 touchdowns in a single game. Only to end up married to a woman who disrespects you. Daughter who sleeps with any jock and a nerdy son. Plus only earning min pay selling women's shoes. Being involved in a pyramid or multi-level marketing scheme. Child beauty pageant mums. Telling others HS will be the best days of your life. Adulthood isn't a breeze by any means. But it should be better than the few years that are supposed to impart learned knowledge and skills to help prepare for the following 50 years of freedom. You know, the 20-year-old that still goes to high school parties? Working at the same place you did when you were in high school. Possibly in a manager capacity. But not transferring locations in any capacity. I used to go to all sorts of high school parties and university ones. I was so damn popular. I'd show up and all these people would be like, hey, the pizza guy's here. How much you wanna make a bet I can throw a football over the mountains? Yeah. Coach Wilder put me in 4th quarter. We would have been state champions. No doubt. No doubt in my mind. Not changing hairstyles. Hitting on 16-year-olds when you're in your 40s. Keeping any trophies and awards on obvious display. Continuing to party like you did in high school, helping your high school age children throw crazy parties, alcohol included, that could easily end with you being arrested. My husband keeps his rock climbing award because it looks like a hand grabbing a boob. You betcha that sucker stays on display. Those dads that shout at referees at children's sport games. When they keep reminiscing about being QB on the HS football team. Back in 1982 I used to be able to throw a pigskin a quarter mile. Jake and Logan Paul. Somehow. They feel like they're still peaking. I sense that's coming to an end shortly. Sense that's coming to end shortly. But it's everyday, bro. Pretty much talking about high school all the time when you see them. I'm from a small city whose economy is really driven by factories, and I find that for a lot of people that stay working there, high school was their peak. The saddest case in my opinion is the guy who was the captain of the baseball team. We follow each other on Twitter and he tweets often about how good he was at baseball and how he should have been drafted rather than be stuck working some factory job. And yes, whenever I see him he does the good ol' hey remember when crap that I usually expect when I go visit. So glad I left that place. Could it be that they reminisce about high school with you because that is what the two of you have in common? All of the high school athletes that I'm friends with on Facebook are wearing a pastel button-up shirt with a tie and 50-100 extra pounds in their profile picture. Still using your senior pictures as your profile picture when you're 32. Also bragging about how muscular you are because you lifted a bunch of weights in high school. No bitch. You're 32. It's fat. Also bragging about being picked first in gym class for everything because you were such a great athlete. Again, you're 32. Nobody cares. You think you're better than this place because you got out of it? Yes. I do. Sorry. TBT prom night or any other throwback to high school. If you're constantly posting about how great high school was after you graduated, then it's possible you peaked in high school. Defining their lives vicariously through their kids' activities. I think in the old days, HS was probably the best years by design. You have a good time in preparation for a life of working in the steel mill or whatever and getting drunk each night until you become unable to work and then spend the rest of your life being taken care of by your kids if you are lucky. Point. Find a recreation other than drinking. It is bad for you. Selling body wraps or get skinny quick potions on Facebook. That's just a sign of being dumb, lol. Well, one of my best friends in high school was dating the most popular chick at school. She was gorgeous, pretty and smart. Everyone thought she'd be super successful in life. Turns out she fell in love with a girl who messed her up. She dropped out of college, got fat and then married this super Christian fat douchebag. She peaked way too early in life. And she knows it. She is however extremely sweet. When I saw her a couple months ago, we're both 33, At her home, engagement party, I noticed all of pics of herself were when she was high school. It's basically as if she's still 18. Now I just feel so bad for her. You are a grown-ass man wearing a Letterman jacket and your senior ring. WTF is wrong with you? AJ? Making a career out of being head honcho of the reunion committee every 10 years. 70yo Redditor here. MR. Popularity of my class comes out of mothballs every 10 years to put on a class reunion weekend. First he begins with the PR 2 years before the event. Has a website, Facebook page, regular email updates, and Twitter feed. He sets the schedule for the pre-reunion informal event followed by the tour of our high school today. Then the golf opportunity, the main big deal event, and the bye-bye brunch. After the event he's posting videos he took on the website for the next 6 months. Eventually he goes back into low-key mode where he just keeps the Facebook page and website updated with news about classmates' life cycle events until the next round comes back into view. Whenever I hear the boss sing Glory Days, he's the one I think of. 70 and running a website, Twitter and Facebook page? I mean, I know a guy who's gone from being happy, confident and optimistic just before graduation to becoming burned out, isolated, horribly lacking in self-esteem and very, very depressed. That guy is me. When they wear their Letterman jacket too often. Being that guy who hangs out in his hometown with his pickup and his outdated haircut. Going to high school parties. Trying to pick up high school girls. Seems okay for a couple years. But starts to get weird when he hits 20-21 and is still just chilling with 16-year-olds. Posting constant inspirational stuff on FB. Wearing your varsity jacket after you start college. Forcing your kid to partake in sporting activities that they may not be interested in. And getting pissy at the referees when your kid inevitably sucks at the sporting activity that they may not be interested in. 80s films. Creating high school related mini surveys on Reddit. Mums partying in frat houses during parents' weekend. Very materialistic. Seeing the possession of the newest phone or a fancy car as the best you can achieve. Also, referring to women as pussies and hoes. Yeah mate. I don't know you anymore. Don't want to either. It people who were losers in high school. I mean, over 25. Still living with parent but not working towards anything. Still have posters on your wall. Starts flirting with the teens when they themselves are years out of high school. My uncle. Every month or so he posts the same old photograph of him with his high school sweetheart who he clearly hasn't been close with in 40 years. Tags her and says haha remember this? And she usually comments with the same old yeah. Haha. To post that once is probably not that unusual. TBT and such. But multiple times? So weird. I can tell it might have been the only time in his life where anyone could be remotely impressed with what he's achieved. A blonde girlfriend who was a solid 6. Yeah. Asking your old friends if they want to get together to do the Golden Mile in Newton Haven. That's what I like about these high school girls. I get older. They stay the same age. Lol. Some high school teachers who go back to teach high school to relive their glory days. Going to reverse is a bit. Adults who are still obsessed with their high school classmates. They apparently peaked in maturity because they refuse to grow. It's like, yeah, the cheerleader was a jerk to you in high school. But now she's moved on with his life. And doesn't do stuff like that anymore. Plus, she was a kid. And kids do stupid shit. That girl at work may remind you of her. But it isn't her. And even if it was, she's a different person now. Get over it. Went to the old local pub and bumped into an old crowd from secondary school, British equivalent of high school, and they kept talking about the fights they got into in exaggerated detail. Like, seriously, Who cares? Of all the shit to attempt to brag about, they chose that? They was only being friendly with me because I was their weed dealer. They asked if I sold better things now like cocaine. I said I dropped that dealing shit when I didn't have to support my mum anymore, and so now I don't sell cocaine. They promptly shut me out of the conversation and I left. F-king meatheads, man. They never grow mentally. Hey cute, I haven't even begun to peak. And when I do peak, you'll know. Because I'm gonna peak so hard that everybody in Philadelphia's gonna feel it. A fake time machine and obsessing over the football game you could have won back in 1982. I forgot to put in the crystals. I know this guy who is the perfect example of this. Was the cool guy. The class clown. He went to all the parties, was on the homecoming court, all that shit. Well, after high school he got into a semi-bad wreck and formed an on and off pain pill addiction. He can't hold down a job. Is in and out of rehab on a yearly cycle, and all the other cool kids want nothing to do with him. Well, my husband bumped into him one day and felt bad for him and invited him to come hang out at our house. He came over several times and only talks about high school. Like teacher jokes and all. Like, I get it's something you two can talk about, but for Christ's sake, we graduated 10 years ago, you have to have something else to talk about. Well, for him everything after HS is utter shit. The crash. The drug habit. The social isolation. No wonder he doesn't feel like talking about anything after HS. You meet someone at a dinner party and his greatest achievement was that he scored 3 goals in a single game in high school. Every conversation somehow turns around to when they were the f-king coolest person in high school. Lol, yeah, that remind me of when I was in high school, blah blah blah. This girl posted this status on Facebook about 10 years after graduation about how she loved high school and how she loved it and how she misses it and how everything was great. Which was true for her. She was the popular girl that everybody, even the teachers, liked. I felt like she was so mature for her age then. On the one hand, I can relate to that, it was a very nurturing neighborhood. But on the other, it's been 10 years. The amount of growth that others have gained dwarfs anything high school would be able to offer. Her unfortunately was the type to stay at home after graduating and taking a year off and then partying at a local JC, eventually dropping out and becoming nothing. I assume anyone who still lives in their hometown peaked in high school. Maybe their hometown is super awesome. I mean, not really. Even in rural areas, there's money to be made. Loggers make a ton of money. Truck drivers. Start your own business. Work from home as some kind of web developer. Etc. There's plenty of ways to make bank in your hometown. IDK, my hometown is a great place to raise a family and I'm thinking about living there once I have a family. It's a nice little suburb town, not too far from Portland but far enough away that the homeless problem and high housing costs doesn't affect us. The schools are also solid. If they went to high school in New York, getting into multiple MLMs even though they always fail. The youngest guide to climb Mount Everest? I'll see myself out. Apparently that guy, Jordan Romero, climbed Everest at 13. So it's worse. Peaked in middle school. Reading these posts makes me realize a lot of more of the Redditors are more nerdy and reclusive than I originally estimated. Vapid personality. Can't hold a conversation. No real knowledge of anything outside of their social circle. Overwhelming sense of entitlement just for being alive. Working at one of those sketchy used car lots. A Trans Am. Doesn't get much cooler than a Trans Am. You drive a 73 and you might as well call yourself captain of the football team for life. I have a co-worker that just left on vacation to attend her 20-year reunion, and when I asked her what her plans are, all she said was, I want to show off my new body and make all the girls from high school that hated on me jealous. And I'm just sitting there like, so you're telling me you're paying to go all the way to Vegas for a week to talk shit essentially? People that wear Letterman jackets when it gets cold in Texas. Classic prom queen that gets knocked up and ends up a fat single mother but still thinks she's the shitty. Remembering high school in extreme detail. Names, events, etc. I've mostly forgotten it. I've forgotten friends' names, teachers' names, what I did, what I didn't. I don't care about high school. My life improved so much afterwards in college and grad school. That's what I chose to remember. Can't agree with this. You don't get to choose what you remember. Some people vividly remember the worst times and periods of their life. Some people just have a really good memory. My high school experience mostly sucked and was extremely socially uneventful. But I remember all of it to some degree. I've noticed a lot lately that when I go to parties with people who all went to high school together, all they talk about is the good old days where they'd get drunk together and do stupid tea in their parents' cabins on the weekend. A few stories are legitimately funny, but listening to it for an entire evening is just tiring. Obsessing over your old high school sports team is another heavy indicator. So many of my classmates want to go to college, get jobs back home, in our town of maybe 900 people, and raise their kids in our school because of the goddamn sports team. Parents like that are why the art and music programs were so shitty and underfunded when I went there. Guys, it's not a good school. Period. Just because you can relive your glory days by forcing your kid to get up at 5 AM for practice for their entire high school career doesn't mean your kid will learn shitty throughout that time. Isn't that the important part? Learning shitty?